This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. Yankees take game 1 of the ALCS against the Cleveland Guardians. Game 2 is Tuesday night, 7:30 in the Bronx. Hopefully the winds aren't swirling at 20 miles an hour to right field this time around, but I don't even think we're going to be taking, rose-colored glasses versus negative opinion, head-to-head debate style takes on this game 1. Fact of the matter is, Yankees took game 1. Yankees executed. Yankees got some power from the sources we've come to expect. Juan Soto goes yard. Who's shocked? Giancarlo Stanton leaves the yard. Who's shocked? Still, the same concerns from the DS linger. The Yankees have won the same game 4 times in 5 tries this postseason. They've gotten strong starting pitching. They have wriggled their way out of opponents' rallies. They have gotten extremely strong relief pitching. They have relied on the same people. Luke Weaver has pitched in every game of this postseason run. That is not sustainable, even though the Yankees took care of business early enough in the DS to give themselves some rest before this series. They will not be afforded the same rest in this series. Game 2 is tonight. You've surely already noticed that there are 0 days off between games 1 and 2. Take a 1-day break to travel to Cleveland, Ohio, bat the midges off of your plane's windshield, then land and play 3 straight games in 3 days, unless the Yankees sweep, which would be great. That would be fantastic. But if they don't do that, they're going to have to play games 3, 4, and 5 on the 17th, 18th, 19th, no days off. Luke Weaver in the regular season would not be pitching today in game 2. Luke Weaver in the postseason, there's a chance he pitches in game 2. But when you go 0-for with runners in scoring position, as the Yankees did yesterday, 0 hits, not just like, it's a tough runners in scoring position performance, 0 hits, then you leave runners on base, you leave runs on the board that you could have picked up and didn't. You end up in a scenario where in the 8th inning with a 4-run lead, you try to avoid your high leverage relievers, but Tim Hill and Anthony Rizzo's defense gets you to a point where you can't do that. So in comes Luke Weaver anyway, and Luke Weaver's great, and he won't admit if he's tired, and he winked at the question in the aftermath. But again, if the Yankees are going to win the World Series, if the Yankees are going to win the American League, Luke Weaver cannot pitch every single day. They need a laugher. They need a comfortable win. I saw some people on Twitter saying that yesterday was comfortable. I'd love to be in your body. It was not. It was comfortable for maybe 3 minutes after Giancarlo Stanton homered, but then they made it uncomfortable again with a botched play at first and a weird obstruction call and a heads-up play by Brian Rocchio, and we were right back in disaster mode with Jose Ramirez as the tying run. Again, Luke Weaver got him because Luke Weaver's a good pitcher, but not comfortable for me. They're going to need either their next win has to be very comfortable, or if there has to be a loss, it's got to involve Marcus Stroman and some unorthodox arms eating some innings. The Guardians, you're going to hear this from everyone, so we're not going to say this on the podcast. Other podcasts are going to be like, the Guardians kept themselves in the series yesterday by not having to use their top bullpen arms. Okay, well, they also brought in a guy who threw 4 wild pitches and gave the Yankees a free win. So, yes, true. And yes, the Guardians are better set up for the remainder of this series than they would have been if they had to use all those high leverage guys. But they still took a loss, kept them in that game loosely, and could not come back, and now are down 1-0 in the series, in large part because of the relievers they chose. If it were up to me, I would have gone with a high leverage guy with the bases loaded instead of Cantillo. They didn't. The New York Yankees won the baseball game. We'll talk about that. We will celebrate a little bit. We got MVPs. We got moments you were most scared, moments you were happiest. For me, those are pretty obvious. We'll talk about Anthony Rizzo and the potential roster issues and the remainder of the series. But for now, the Yankees went into game 1 with Carlos Rodón, a guy who made a lot of folks relatively uncomfortable heading into that all-important tone setter. We were having a debate. Would you rather have Rodón for game 1 and risk losing that if he implodes, or would you rather have him for game 3 in a road game that could flip momentum? And it turns out he went game 1, and all the stats said the Guardians love hitting lefties, and it didn't matter, and he was awesome. So we'll talk about all this. But first, Thomas Carannante is here with a message from today's sponsor.
I have a message for the first time in a while, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We got Underdog Fantasy. They want you to take a swing at Pick'em Baseball. this season at Underdog. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats like strikeouts, total bases, and home runs. I'm in on the action. I had Carlos Rodón strikeouts last night. I felt it. I thought he was going to come back and give it to this Guardians lineup that was kind of not really impressive offensively against the Tigers. And I know the Tigers were a bit of a team of destiny, but if you're a playoff team, you got to hit. And the Guardians came up in some big moments, but consistently, they haven't really been hitting. Carlos Rodón struck out 9 last night. We absolutely love it. But in terms of getting involved in Underdog, very, very easy to play, very easy to get started. Go to their easy-to-use mobile app or head on over to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code GOYARD. That's our exclusive promo code GOYARD. And Underdog will give you a mystery special pick to use on your first pick'em entry, plus a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's, once again, Underdog Fantasy, promo code GOYARD to claim your new customer special of a mystery player pick and your deposit offer. You must be 18 or older or 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mpcgambling.org. If you're in New York area, you can call the Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Enjoy yourselves, folks. That's once again Underdog Fantasy. On a gloomier note, I don't know, man. I am not pleased with how this team is performing. I just am not. They are 6 for 42 with runners in scoring position this postseason. That is a 143 batting average. This is not how you win games. They have averaged 6.8 walks a game throughout this postseason. That's been 5 games. They are getting nearly 7 walks per game, and they have scored a total of 19 runs. They outscored the Royals in the DS 14-12. They did score 5 last night, but guess what? 3 were made possible by the wild pitch. 2 came in through wild pitch, and Gleyber Torres, who got on via a walk to lead off the inning in the Aaron Judge sac fly inning, was moved to third thanks to 2 wild pitches. So again, we take the win. We are not complaining today about going up 1-0 in the ALCS. We are not complaining about the quiet lineup outside of Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto for the most part. By the way, if it wasn't Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto yesterday, 3 for 23, 0 extra base hits. So another 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position night, as Adam mentioned earlier. No lineup changes outside of Rizzo getting in there, and we'll talk about how that probably can't happen anymore after what we saw last night.
Gonna happen today, though.
Yeah, Aaron Boone's got to do something with Austin Wells. He cannot keep batting cleanup and not doing anything, especially when you have Aaron Judge continuing to struggle mostly, not doing what he needs to do to carry the weight of the postseason with his team. It's mostly over-reliance, in my opinion, on Giancarlo Stanton and Luke Weaver. And you have to credit the Yankees because they've been doing what they've needed to do to win. Aaron Boone is calling upon the guys that he is truly confident in will get them across the finish line, but you can't keep using these. Clay Holmes and Luke Weaver have pitched in every game. You can't do that for a long playoff run. And on a night like last night when they're up, 4-0 at that one point?
4-0 headed into the 6th. Rodón got ambushed for the 1 home run.
Yeah.
You watch that AB back, and it's pretty much the same fastball that he got away with in the first inning.
Yeah.
He ended the first inning by getting a swing and miss at that pitch. 97, upper corner of the zone, inside on a righty batter. And with a 2-2 count to Rocchio, he goes 96 in the exact same spot, and Rocchio got around on it. 1 mile an hour made all the difference, or Rocchio was just better prepared. Would have gone slider there. But either way, it's not like Rodón even got beat on a meatball. He got beat on a good pitch, allowed 1 run, had a long battle with Jose Ramirez to end his start. Aaron Judge tracked it down in the gap. Great job. So not blaming Rodón for giving up literally 1 run, not even blaming Aaron Boone for trying something and bringing in Tim Hill. But we are in a situation where the offense has myriad chances early in the game to bust the doors down. Rodón could have been cruising with an 8-0 lead. Instead, it's one mistake, and it's not even a mistake. It's just one bad outcome, and it turns into a save situation all of a sudden. Clay Holmes comes in. I was worried. When you go to the bullpen over and over again, you're worried that it's going to be the one day when the bullpen is a little bit off. Holmes had been so flawless in the playoffs. Ron Darling has taken every opportunity possible to open the Holmes outings by saying, and he's never allowed a run in the postseason. I was like, well, here we go. This will be a 4-3 game in the 8th, and we'll see Tommy Kahnle. Holmes was incredible again. And the slider he uncorked to Manzardo to end that inning, great job.
Yeah.
But of course, Aaron Boone knows he can't ride these guys endlessly. Once you bring in Holmes in the 7th, I was of the mind that I would have liked to see him start the 8th, considering it felt like he was going to get burned regardless. I understand why Aaron Boone didn't do that. Giancarlo Stanton homered to give him an extra run worth of breathing room. And Boone's like, okay, let me expand my scope here a little bit to Tim Hill. Let's see if we can avoid using our closer for, again, the 5th time in 5 games. And the wildest thing is that the usage of Luke Weaver has been justified 4 out of 5 times. Obviously, he came into the opener game of the Royals series and secured a save. Obviously, he came into games 3 and 4 of the Royals series and secured saves. Obviously, with runners on the corners and 1 out, thanks to Tim Hill and some malfeasance last night, Weaver came in again for a 5-out save. But I still don't understand why he came in and threw 5 pitches to Bobby Witt Jr. in game 2 of the DS. And I'm not sure why it was Tim Hill. The Guardians, we were worried about them starting Rodón because the Guardians kill lefties. 4 runs is suddenly enough for you to go to a lefty specialist with a 3-batter minimum against a portion of the whole Guardians lineup is able to handle left-handers for the most part. You've got Jimenez in the middle there, but you've also got, was it Lane? It wasn't Naylor to start. It's the guy. Yeah.
Noel?
It was the pinch hitter for Noel, right?
Oh, Manzardo.
But they got Manzardo.
Neiman?
Because it wasn't Lane Thomas, because Lane Thomas was hitting cleanup yesterday. Either way, he retired the first batter and then was unable to secure Jimenez, and he was stuck facing Rocchio, who hit a ball to Anthony Rizzo that should have been stopped and wasn't stopped. Either way, bad outcome. And then all of a sudden you're in a jam. You have to go to Weaver. I would have gone Ian Hamilton there. Once you're up 4, I think you can deviate away from the big 3, but I wouldn't go with a lefty unless you absolutely have to. And I don't really want Tim Hill facing the Guardians in a game that's still up for grabs. And if you listen to the internet, they say yesterday was never up for grabs, but I don't understand that mentality.
The tying run was on base in the 8th.
With 2 batters remaining. The tying run was at the plate with pinch hitter Will Brennan, and thank you, Stephen Vogt, for bailing us out there because Will Brennan was not prepared to take that plate appearance for whatever reason, just swinging over changeups like Josh Naylor was. And Jose Ramirez, I don't know how they got that out on the second pitch of the AB.
Wild.
But when you're going to Weaver every day, and he said after the game, I'm not tired. You know, if I was tired, I wouldn't tell you. He's tired. He's more tired than he's been. He's going to continue to be leaned on as this postseason run continues. And he's been a genius in split inning duty this whole time. And yesterday he was awful. He came out for the 9th after getting these 2 huge outs in the 8th and threw 5 balls immediately out of the zone to the leadoff hitter, who was Thomas. And the 4th one was 5 inches above the plate, and it got called a strike, and he got bailed out. And the next one was well off the plate. For the first time all postseason, he looked a little incomplete. He fell behind 3-0 to Daniel Schneemann, too. And he deserves all the credit in the world for getting out of it. But I didn't think that I didn't want to see the 8th inning start the way that the 8th inning did. And it's the offense's fault that we even have to talk about this.
The offense not giving Carlos Rodón a big enough lead for Aaron Boone to let him pitch the 7th at 93 pitches. That costs you, if you want to burn anybody in these series, it's your starting pitchers. Because they're not, for the most part, the Yankees have enough depth on that front where they don't have to pitch guys on short rest. And really the only guy that you'd want to pitch on short rest is Garrett Cole. So even if it comes to that point, that's something the Yankees can stomach. If you want to throw Carlos Rodón as many innings and as many pitches as you absolutely can, and on a night where he goes 6 innings, 3 hits, 0 walks. And one of the hits was just getting beat on one fastball. Like, that should have been and this is splitting hairs. I understand that. But I'm looking ahead toward the rest of the playoffs. You have a 7-game series against the Guardians, who have the best pitching staff in the league, maybe, when you look at it in totality, or
and
at least
didn't use any of the guys you're really scared of in game 1.
The best pitching, maybe top to bottom, of teams remaining, and the Yankees bullpen renaissance at this point might flip the script there, but I don't think there's any denying how good the Guardians bullpen is, and the fact that they're able to absorb an Alex Cobb 2 2/3 outing and still remain in the game. That speaks volumes. And they, again, still remain in the game despite the guy coming in after him, Cantillo, completely throwing it. He pulled in Angel Zerpa. And that was, exactly how the Yankees won that game against the Royals. It's exactly how they won this game against the Guardians. 2 solo shots from Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton. If the wild pitches don't go in the Yankees' favor as they did, this is potentially a tie game late.
They bring in 27-year-old Pedro Avila to clean up the mess. He goes 2 2/3 innings, only strikes out 1, but doesn't allow a base runner. This is a guy with a 3.81 ERA in 82 2/3 innings this year, and he didn't make the DS roster for the Guardians. So the Yankees are like, okay, we don't need that much pitching in a short series. Marcus Stroman, who gave them good work early in the season and pretty much imploded down the stretch, they're like, okay, we don't need to carry Stroman. He's the limit on the roster. And the Guardians were like, all right, in a short series, we don't have to carry this 82 inning guy with a mid-3s ERA. Like, that's how deep they are. And he showed up yesterday and stabilized things. They throw arms at you all. They're the only team in baseball history with 4 relievers, 60 innings pitched, and ERAs under 2. And we didn't see any of those guys yesterday. Those guys are tired. That's the reason we didn't see any of those guys yesterday, because we didn't need to. But Herron and Cade Smith and Hunter Gaddis and obviously Emmanuel Clase. The Guardians are going to start Tanner Bybee in game 2. They're probably going to follow him with all 4 of those guys. It's the Yankees' job to try their best to make sure Bybee doesn't get through 5 innings.
Try hard.
And this gets a little bit scarier. It's not like, look, the Tigers touched up Hunter Gaddis the other day. The Tigers obviously touched up Clase a little bit. These guys aren't infallible now. They're just the gold standard for a bullpen remaining in the postseason. If you're going to get to the World Series, it's like we said last round with Seth Lugo. You can't throw your hands up and be like, Hunter Gaddis is coming in. What were we even supposed to do? Like, you have to beat these guys.
Yeah. Well,
you have to blow the doors off early so you don't have to face them. But still, it's a bigger challenge tonight than it was yesterday.
Of course. And the Yankees have 5 home runs in 5 postseason games. Home run's supposed to be their strength. It's absolutely not translating at this point, and that's where you got to worry. And with the 7-game series, this is where taking game 1 is great, but it also doesn't matter. Because if you lose game 2, then home field gets flipped, and that's all the lower seed needs. Look what the Mets did. They got their shit blown off in game 1 against the Dodgers, and they came back and they punched hard and they got out of tough situations in game 2. And I know the Dodgers probably got a little bit of confidence in that one because they almost came back from a 6-0 deficit, but the Mets have home field now. And the Mets did what they needed to do in order to put the Dodgers in the most realistic uncomfortable position, because you're not taking the first 2 in LA.
And losing game 2 again does not lose the original home team the series, but it certainly makes it a series and tightens the clamps. They were flashing. You all saw the stats in the DS about, I think it was game 1 winners win the series 78% of the time. Mm-hmm. In the CS, game 1 winners win it 64% of the time. And if you're the home team and you won game 1, it's 67%. So the Yankees historically have about a 2/3 chance of winning the series right now, but that is barely substantial. It's not 52%. It's not the Mariners' desired winning percentage, but it favors you, but it's completely reasonable to see the opposite direction. And again, if you let the Guardians charge back fully equipped with their top pitchers, today. Look, it's not the Tigers, it's not Tarek Skubal, but it's the Guardians lack in starting pitching, and the Guardians are hoping their bullpen can hold up under the strain of a full month of October after a full season of being overused. I see why you might be optimistic that there are going to be cracks in that facade, but the Guardians are thinking the same thing about the Yankees, who are using Holmes and Weaver every single day, and we're using Hanley every single day except for yesterday. And Ian Hamilton and Tim Hill have to be better than Cantillo and the guys that the Guardians went to in early trouble yesterday.
Yeah, and look like how the Guardians strategize, right? They had game 5 on Saturday. They had a day off on Sunday. They rolled with the punches as best they could on Monday, knowing they were going to rest their high leverage arms because they had to use them all on Saturday. And now they have them saved for Tuesday, and now they have another off day on Wednesday. So, yes, correct. 3 games in a row is going to prevent them from being able to unleash everybody again when we hit Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Cleveland. But they just put themselves in the best position possible to take a 2-1 lead and then put the Yankees on the ropes with their overused bullpen. So that's a concern.
What you'd love to do is make some sort of statement tonight, which would not close the series, but would set you up and allow you to exhale for just a couple of seconds. And then the goal is win or lose game 3, just hang tough and get Emmanuel Clase in that game, preferably in a tie game.
Yes.
Like, if you could hold it, let's just say you win game 2, 3-3 in the 8th inning on Thursday night, and in comes Clase. And you get him or you don't, but he throws 28 pitches. That would be fantastic. Obviously, asking a lot from an offense that put up 5 runs yesterday, 2 of which came on monstrous solo home runs, the other 3 of which were gifts. Good job by Aaron Judge with the sac fly picking up the runner from third, but how did he get there? Patient plate appearance, wild pitch. Bo Naylor behind the plate yesterday. I mean, Cantillo was all over the place, and these slow looping curveballs weren't working, and they weren't landing. Bo Naylor's got to be better behind the plate. That was abysmal. And he's in there for offense. And the batter we were all forgetting, the only guy Tim Hill was able to retire was Austin Hedges, coming in as a backup, hitting a soft fly ball to right field, getting that inning off on the right foot before Jimenez ambushed him. Rocchio went down to Rizzo. Kwan hit the most obvious 2-strike slap single of all time, and the wheels briefly came off before Weaver came in. The worst case scenario, obviously, I don't have to tell you this, was the Yankees being forced to use Weaver yesterday, Weaver blowing that game, and then the Yankees having burned their key bullpen assets in a blown save. It's not impossible to recover from a blown save. It would have been pretty impossible to recover from a game in which the Yankees had to use Luke Weaver for 5 outs, and it didn't work, and then they're scrapping along in extra innings. That's why we're patting him on the back and saying, big win. You didn't look, if the wheels just fell off and Rodón gave up 8 runs, we would have been able to regroup and move on and talk about today how they'd be able to get back on track in game 2 and regain some semblance of momentum. Once that game played out the way it did, you can't lose that game. And they executed in the 8th when they had to. And in the Schneemann at bat, Schneemann has been killing me all year. And I know if you've been watching the Yankees for either all year, all decade, your whole life, you've just got guys on teams throughout the league that when you see them, you irrationally fear them. It was Tommy Pham in the last round and Gurriel. I mean, I don't even think it's irrational to fear Gurriel after what he's done to us over the years, but it's the Schneemann fellow on the Cleveland Guardians. I will never forget watching every pitch of that 13-inning game where the Yankees stranded runners over and over again in extra innings this summer and ultimately lost. Schneemann was out in right field making athletic play after athletic play, and he checks in yesterday, and I'm like, I hope to never see this guy in a situation that matters. And what does he do? He immediately snags an Aaron Judge line drive off the ground, basically looks away and picks it off the grass with his glove. So again, in there cold, making great plays in right field. And then when he shows up in the 9th, gets ahead in the count 3-0, you're like, and now we're walking Schneemann. We are walking Schneemann. But Luke Weaver handles business. Schneemann swings and foul tips one in the glove. We move on. The Yankees should be satisfied with taking a game that the way it unfolded, they had to have. But we really should be sitting here talking about it, a huge, emphatic victory, and we're talking about a game where they kind of had to hold on in the later innings, and it prevents us from giving Carlos Rodón an accurate amount of flowers, which, to be fair, we are about to do because holy shit. The stats said this is if you want to feel something about these Yankees, which again can be tough when you're on the edge of your seat for every game and you're sitting through saves and you're just nail biting until the game is over. But if you want to feel good, the stats said that Rodón should not be pitching yesterday's game 1. The stats said that you did not want to give Carlos Rodón 2 starts in the CS, not just because of game 2 of the division series, but the Guardians entered this game 29-11 against lefties this year with a roster-wide 123 WRC plus, and you saw it against Tim Hill when Andres Jimenez, lefty, was just like, I don't care about this, and slapped one through the hole, and you're like, oh, they don't care about this. Rodón could not control his emotions in game 2 of the DS, admitted it himself, ran out of steam, pitched like a reliever, threw maybe the best first inning I've ever seen, and then couldn't find it again, wagging his tongue. A couple of times in this start, you saw him make a face, get ready to put the tongue back in his mouth, and walk off the mound composed. I think it was after the 4th inning. He finished with a K. He spun around, wanted to do something, decided against it, walked off the mound robotically. The stuff diminished. The location worsened in game 2 of the DS. Never happened in this start. Like you said, most swinging strikes by a Yankee starter in any playoff game since they started tracking that in 2008. That's not bad. And you hear yesterday, hey, okay, so we're hoping they beat the Guardians, obviously. And ultimately they do, and good. They get off on the right foot. In the postgame, they were like, the Yankees are now 2-1 in the ALCS in game 1s at New Yankee Stadium. And I started to, okay, 2-1. I mean, I know they've lost a bunch of CSs lately. I know they've won some game 1s, and going back and thinking, what are these games? Yesterday, game 1 of the 2012 CS.
Yeah.
Which they
lost.
Say
2011 and 2010 and 2012.
They lost 2012. So that's 1 win, 1 loss. And then game 1 of the 09 CS they won. That's it. The home CS games, only 3 since they opened the new stadium. Only 2 wins, 09 and yesterday. That's a good feeling. This was not easy. Yeah. And give also Andy Pettit apparently counseled Rodón Sunday on what to expect from the stadium atmosphere, how to combat it, how to regain control of his own outing, and it worked. So whatever you're paying Andy Pettit, double it. Kind of a magical connection between eras, and everything about the offense that frustrated us and kept this game closer than it should have been. Rodón spent 6 innings counteracting those fears. Every frame he took the rubber, you were like, okay, just have an easy one. Just please have an easy one. Get it back to the offense. Get back in the dugout. And he delivered every single time. He finished the first 5 innings with strikeouts. I mean, he was unbelievably dominant. And that's a little bit of found money, because did you expected game 1 to maybe be a slog? Maybe you lose it. Maybe Rodón never finds it. Emphatic victory for him, if not for the team as a whole.
Definitely for him. You could see that he was, I think, maybe working a little bit extra harder to compose himself, because he was pitching so well and he never really exploded at any point. He had a really good post-game interview as well, so it was clear that he was able to kind of keep himself in check. A lot of the times when you see these pitchers come off, they're unable to form a sentence. Garrett Cole, after every start, cannot answer a question. Carlos Rodón coherently answered questions after the game. I view that as something positive. You guys could take it whatever way you want, but I think being a person is really important in these situations, and being able to overcome certain things and control yourself are really, really important for handling the moment. That said, yes, completely bailed out the offense, because if the Yankees do go into an early hole, whether it's happening in the 4th inning, or remember, Carlos Rodón very bad in the 1st inning, this team's looking at a bad situation, because they don't come back. They have these withering offensive acts where they do just enough to get by, and then they get a win like this, or they get the 3 wins they had in the Royal Series, and they're, essentially the message is, oh, really, you're going to complain about a win? It's like, I'm not complaining about a win, but the wins have to stop looking like this. We have to stop relying on, 6-7 scoreless innings or 1-run ball to get by.
It
when we
happens
had a top 3
sometimes.
offense.
Yeah, I mean, that's October baseball, baby, but it's not supposed to be every single victory. And if it is, you need a deeper bullpen, because if every game's going to look like this, you're going to need to win one of these games with Ian Hamilton going 2 innings.
Exactly. And on the flip side, there is no such thing as an easy playoff opponent. There is no such thing as downplaying 6 innings and 1 earned in any October start, no matter who it is.
This is the 2 seed, but this is the number 2 team in the American League. This is not a random wild card that got hot.
However, not a good offensive team.
No.
And if they're throwing 36-year-old Alex Cobb at you, who has started 5 games this year, 2 of which came in the postseason, you have to do better than 5 runs on the night after chasing him out of the game early and then getting gifted 3 runs because of a wild pitch. So again, if Carlos Rodón had a little bit more breathing room, we could have been talking about him going into the 7th and the bullpen not having to use high leverage arms in game 1, where again, I don't disagree with anybody here. I thought we were in full control of the game for the most part. It just didn't feel like a coast to coast breezy win, and I know that those are also hard to come by. That's not an easy thing to do in the postseason. But when it's lined up for you, when that's the starter, when this is your lineup, you have a top 2-3 offense in the league, and the Guardians are already going to not their best arms in the bullpen at the first sign of trouble, there needs to be a greater buffer. Guardians, 17th best offense in the league in OPS this year, 702. Guess who was ahead of them? The Cardinals, the Rockies, the Royals, and the Cubs. One of those teams made the postseason. The other one was one of the worst in baseball. So I also tied with the Blue Jays and 1 point ahead of the San Francisco Giants, who also 2 teams did not make the postseason. So it's very clear the Guardians' strength is their pitching. And when they give you a lane to abuse their pitching, you absolutely need to do that. And you need to take pressure off your own starting staff. The Yankees did not do that, but nonetheless, all the credit goes to Carlos Rodón for allowing the Yankees to languish in the manner in which they did. Clay Holmes coming in again in the 7th inning and quickly dispatching of the 4 through 6 hitters. Incredible.
He was awesome.
The Tim Hill situation, he deserved a little bit better based on how that inning kind of transpired, but it is what it is. I'm not really bent out of shape about Aaron Boone bringing in a lefty there, considering a lefty started the game. But again, if we were in a better position, maybe Rodón goes 1 more inning, maybe Tim Hill comes in for the 8th, and then you're playing with house money and you could figure it the fuck out for the 8th and the 9th. I don't know. But the Guardians' offense is bad. They proved that as much against the Tigers. They had 1 big swing, 2 big swings against the Tigers. 1 was off Tarek Skubal, who has been exhausted because this is the first, I think it's the most he's ever pitched in his career. And that was hands down the toughest game he's ever thrown. Game 5 on the road, with no offense to the Tigers, a team that shouldn't have even been there. But the way that they battled, obviously, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of, I know the Tigers were playing with house money in a sense, but that's very difficult. And they got to the Tigers bullpen in game 4 after you want to talk about a bullpen that's been overworked. This team has been throwing bullpen games since the trade deadline when their starting rotation got decimated. So again, Guardians do not hit. We can neutralize them. Offense on our end needs to figure out a way for us to strategize moving forward with this pitching staff. So Clay Holmes, Luke Weaver, and Tommy Kahnle are not being used every night. That's it. I want to use Marcus Stroman in an 8-0 game and have him eat 3 innings. Isn't that the whole point that he's here? Because you look ahead to the rest of the series, Garrett Cole today, that's great. Clark Schmidt in game 3 on Thursday, that's great. Luis Heel, who hasn't pitched since September 28th, game 4 on Friday. So to me, you're going to need really, really good starts from Garrett Cole and Clark Schmidt in order to survive this. And you're going to have to maybe have a quick hook on Luis Heel. So the bullpen's got to be saved for Friday if we're looking at maybe we're down 2-1 at that point. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you are and Luis Heel's your starter, that's where you're going to need the bullpen bullets. And we're wasting a lot of them. And I understand why, because again, these games are close. Aaron Boone knows what needs to be done. I'm still going to give him credit for going to these guys, even though I feel like it's not the right move, but he needs to win the games, and he understands that. His offense is not giving him a lane to do so. And again, 5 home runs in these 5 playoff games, 6 for 42 with runners in scoring position, 38 strikeouts. Just, it can't be. It can't be like this every game.
6 for 42 is an all-timer, and we just can't be rolling our eyes at these scenarios every single day, which leads me to the most terrifying moment of the game for me. I honestly, I want to go with the Anthony Rizzo dive and the ball skittering around and that obstruction call and everything getting knocked off kilter, but honestly, for me, the most terrifying moment of the entire game was Aaron Judge coming up with after back-to-back singles in the first inning and having that strike 2 called 8 inches below the zone off the inside corner, because it opens up the outside corner for the next pitch, which was a strike. It completely throws off the mojo of a hitter who needed a hit with wrist in that situation more than anyone. And it set them up to not score in that inning, which again, of the 0 for 7 with wrist, 3 of them were the 3rd, 4th, and 5th batters of the game, much like in game 1 against the Royals, much like in game 2 against the Royals. It's been Judge 3 times with an unproductive plate appearance in those situations. And this was the most egregious for me because it wasn't like Cole Reagan's got him, and it wasn't even like a here we go again like in game 1. This one was stolen from him at a time when he did not need that to happen. And so if he can't produce himself and now the umpires are conspiring against him, and I know they're not, but it's just mounting frustration when you see something like that. Felt like it was going to set a horrible tone for this game. It did set an underperforming tone, but they managed to transcend it like they did in game 1 of the DS. But again, can we not have one of those? Can we break the ice in the first, please? I understand it's a lot to ask for an easy playoff game, and you're not going to get those. And even if you take an 8-0 lead, it's going to be scary. And the stat that was unearthed from the Dodgers-Mets CS that blew my mind is that the Dodgers 9-0 blowout win in game 1 is tied for the 4th largest blowout in game 1 in the history of the postseason. And the other 5 teams that are tied with the Dodgers or ahead of them and had larger blowouts all lost their series. So a quirk of the historical register, maybe a lesson and not, maybe you let your guard down a little bit if you dominate game 1 to that extent. Clearly that happened in game 2 when the Dodgers intentionally walked Francisco Lindor, took the ball out of their pitcher's hand, loaded the bases with 2 outs for a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience, forced him to throw a full count strike to Mark Vientos, and he got punished. Maybe there's something to be said for walking on the tightrope this whole postseason. But again, if you're doing that, you need to have more guys you can trust to hold the line. That's all we're asking. And so the Aaron Judge AB, partially stolen, partially repetitive, and had echoes. We're used to ghosts at Yankee Stadium in the playoffs. This is all the wrong kind of ghosts. They put guys on base for Judge and Wells and Stanton. Stanton with 2 outs inevitably because Judge and Wells cannot produce at this point in time. And it's ghosts of the same bad innings over and over again. And I thought it was going to set an unpleasant tone. It set an unpleasant tone, but in a win. It still scared me, though.
Yeah, I was very much not a fan of getting the first 2 batters on because it hasn't worked out for us at any point in this series. I was especially just ready to be let down in that 3rd inning when they loaded the bases. And again, I probably would have been let down if not for the wild pitches. Soto homers, Judge walks, Stanton walks, Volpe walks. You have Austin Wells and Jazz Chisholm in between getting outs. Wells is striking out. Chisholm fly out. And that they're just, you have the feeling that they're going to squander an opportunity where they need to blow the game open. And again, they were gifted with this because I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure they walk Rizzo in that scenario if the run doesn't come across from the wild pitch. And then Verdugo comes up and strikes out swinging, which, is not anything surprising. So the 8th inning, I think everybody's most terrifying moment was Rizzo botching that ground ball. But again, the game never felt like we were going to lose. It just felt like we weren't putting ourselves in the best position for the longevity of this series. And I am still uncomfortable when this team has an opportunity to break open the game because they are not doing it. Again, The only opportunities they have broke it open was gifts from completely erratic pitchers in games one of both series. So I need to see this team come through, and I will stop feeling uncomfortable in these situations. But yeah, briefly I had the fear of that being lifted off my shoulders when Stanton scoring on a wild pitch is got to be the worst wild pitch of all time for that to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it comes down to the lineup construction too. Like, I don't know how much longer they're going to let Austin Wells in this slump. I think he finished the end of the season 2 for like 35 or something, and it's been the same thing throughout the postseason. He had that one big hit in game 1 of the DS, and then after that, it's been nothing. Jazz Chisholm, it's again Yankees bad luck. You start talking shit, you turn into a pumpkin, and that's again what's happening here. I know he's playing a good third base, but he's not here to play good third base. We have options at third base. He's here to hit. He's here to diversify the lineup with athleticism. He's here to bring the lefty bat. And the only reason his OPS is above 3 or 4 something is because he hit the meaningless homer in that loss to the Royals in game 2. So the bottom of the lineup, it continues to once you get after Stanton, it's all worries for me. And Wells has to move down again at this point. Like, it's becoming a bigger concern now that you're facing better pitching than you were in the first series, and this one's a 7-game series. The change needs to be made now, so you can go forth with a sample size that you can maybe trust or develop for the remainder of this series, or prep ahead for the World Series. Because again, I love Austin Wells. He is a future piece of this organization. He is not the cleanup hitter in the ALCS in 2024. And I don't care if we're talking about lefty-righty situation, because I saw Talking Yanks elaborating upon that and how it's a bullpen strategy because they don't want a lefty coming in to face 3 righties, or they don't want a righty coming in to face 3 righties. If they were to move somebody else into who would even be, you shift Stanton up, and then you'd move Volpe up, and then you'd push everybody else down, and then you have 3 righties in a row, which allows the bullpen to neutralize you. But I mean, come on, like, you have good hitters, they hit good pitchers. Yes, the splits matter in more of a larger sample size, but I mean, we can't be living and dying every game on the matchups, and this is where it becomes a problem. The Yankees get static with these decisions and with their bullpen usage and with their lineups, and it comes back to bite them eventually. So again, until we get a different win, the feeling's going to remain the same.
It's not like they were sweating the matchups when they went with Rodón yesterday for game 1.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
They're managing by feel, and then they're also managing by, we can't afford to
feel
move
and
Wells
fear
down. Yeah, Wells had a huge hit in the DS. Wells had a huge 3-run homer against the Royals in early September, and here we are. It's been a long time. I mean, my favorite moment of the game, Giancarlo Stanton shitting on a baseball because of the aesthetics of the home run were great. But also Lauren Jabara, the sideline reporter, saying that Guardians left-hander Eric Zabrowski had never been to New York City before and was enjoying his first trip. Smash cut to 0.2 seconds later, Stanton just lit him up, and Zabrowski's reaction on the mound was, as always, hilarious. Just sort of knew it immediately, because how could you not? And he hit it off the back wall of the bullpen. And if not for that, again, everyone who said it was an easy victory, if not for the Stanton homer, it would have been terrifying. Instead, thanks to the Stanton homer, it was relatively easy if you're a big fan of having Jose Ramirez at the plate as the tying run. But was that your like catharsis moment too, or is it the Soto bomb? I mean,
no.
What felt good?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was the Soto bomb because it got it woke up the stadium. It opened the scoring. It got the Yankees off to a scoring start after they kind of squandered those first couple of opportunities. And that's what this team needs when they're playing home games. Like we saw in the DS, how let down they were in game 1 in the back and forth affair that should have felt more exciting, but didn't, because that shouldn't have been the way that the game transpired. And then game 2 was just awful in every way imaginable. And you see how loud that they are in the beginning. and you know that there's nervous energy in there because of how this team historically performs at home and how there is this 15-year drought of getting to the World Series or winning a World Series and the pressure that comes with that. And the fact that the Yankees have been punked since 2016 against hated rivals and have failed to get the upper hand in almost every scenario since then. So opening the scoring was the biggest thing. I think it got the crowd energy in the right spot. I think it allowed the Yankees to cruise to that 4-0 lead. I think it definitely played a role in having the Guardians reliever come in and throw all those wild pitches and keep the door open for the Yankees to score more. So that was a big, just I don't know if it was my favorite individual moment. It just made me feel the most relieved because, like I said, after that happened, and then after the other runs came in, I never felt like this game was truly going to be out of reach. I watched a lot of that DS between the Tigers and the Guardians. I was very underwhelmed by the Guardians. And you look at those two teams with the talent gulf. Like, again, no shade to the Tigers. They really did an amazing job, and I'd be really excited as a Detroit fan right now. But that's an extremely young team, an extremely inexperienced team, and a good portion of that roster either had minimal to no MLB experience coming into this year. And they managed to take the Guardians to the brink. They were 7 outs away in Game 4. Had that fastball not been in David Fry's wheelhouse, we have a different opponent in this ALCS. So, the Guardians, I'm not writing them off, but again, it's a matchup where the Yankees are using their talent to their advantage and they're just getting the bare minimum out of it. So in order to get these moments of relief where they get the scoring started first, or it's an emphatic situation where they're laying down the law, like that's what Yankee Stadium needs when there are these home games, because it hasn't gotten enough of it since however long. Like the 2019 CS, absolute fucking disaster against the Astros. The 2022 CS against the Astros, absolute fucking disaster with all those home games. I think the Yankees won 1 at home out of the 3 in 2019. They lost both to get swept in 2022. 2023, they didn't make the playoffs. 2021, they got embarrassed on the road against the Red Sox. 2020, there were no home playoffs. 2018, they lose both those home games against the Red Sox in fucking devastating fashion. 2017 was electric, and that was really the last time it was electric. Every time before that, since then, has been a disaster. So it's fully accurate to say that there is nervous energy in the stadium, and it's translating to the players, and it's infecting everybody. But the Yankees have to get the job done. They are, again, playing an inferior team. And like Joel Sherman said, I'm going to mention this all year until something changes. They're going to out-talent the opposition until they can't anymore, because they don't play fundamental defense. They kind of melt down in big moments. They don't get hits in the right situations. And the home run ball, which is their calling card, is not really happening. They're averaging 1 home run per game. So Soto's moment was the weight lifted. It made me feel better for the remainder of the contest.
Sherman has been calling them the B+ Yankees this October as well. And I would agree. They're playing B+ ball, and it's working so far. But I mean, they need to hit another gear if they are going to have any hope of defeating either the Mets or the Dodgers. And by the way,
those teams I'm worried about.
Those teams are good. You got to take care of the Guardians before you can even think about that. But right now, in a hypothetical World Series matchup, I mean, I don't know where the Yankees' advantage lies. They have to play better. And Garrett Cole obviously is the highest ERA of his career against the Mets. We went through this like months ago. Never thought we'd have to think about it again. And now we got to think about it again. So beat the Guardians first, then we'll see. With Anthony Rizzo in the lineup, I'm not sure if B+ is even fair. They might be the B Yankees.
I think
with
they're
Anthony
B.
Rizzo at the plate. Rizzo at the dish hit a 105-mile-an-hour liner yesterday, which was great. It's in his bat. That's good to see, because he had some takes yesterday that were like, even if he's an offensive 0, they should still play him. And I think he's a valuable postseason player, but I wouldn't go that far. If he's an offensive 0, they should not play him. If he can't swing, they should not play him. But he had a 105-mile-an-hour liner. He had a ball in the bottom of the 8th that he got under a little bit and kind of felt like it kind of looked like a homer, but maybe it is with 2 hands behind it. And I don't know, but he gets pulled for the 9th for defense. Aaron Boone said he was, quote, physically and emotionally spent by the end of the game. He's replaced defensively by Oswaldo Cabrera. We thought when Rizzo got activated that he might be the defensive replacement, and they just would rather he be lingering on the bench instead of Ben Rice, and I get that, but physically and emotionally drained. Rizzo himself said no pain last night. You know that's a lie, but because of course he's going to say that, but it's good to hear. I was glad to see the bat isn't empty, but the play that reopened the door for the Guardians was an inexperienced Rizzo isn't fair, but an unprepared Rizzo isn't fair either. But somebody who was a cheerleader in the DS and wanted to be out there, but maybe didn't expect to be. And there was a story on the broadcast about how Aaron Boone wasn't sure what he was going to do, but then he heard Rizzo taking BP, and he was like, wait, that's you? Oh, if you've got that in you, then you can play. All of it's an inspirational story as long as there aren't moments of significant rust under the spotlight. There's a chance that we get to the end of this and it's like, oh my goodness, the Yankees won a ring, and somehow Oswaldo Cabrera and John Birdie pulled it out of their ass in the DS to hold down the fort for the man whose job it actually was. And thank goodness they handed the keys to Rizzo at the exact time they did, because otherwise their magic was going to run out. It's possible. But it's also possible that the Yankees had something that was working and decided we got to be deferential to our guy. And even if he's not right, we're going to tell this magical story about how his the sound of his batting practice session was like a unicorn flapping its wings. And we decided to just change the roster right then and there. And also we released Ben Rice. Sorry, Ben, no playoffs for you. Like, I don't know. I hope, but physically, emotionally drained, bad play in the 8th, ball he's got to get his glove on, saying no pain because he has to. I would rather not see Rizzo in game 2 and rely on him for the road games if we gotta, and maybe rely on him for defense if we gotta, but I do suspect that he will be in today's starting lineup.
Yeah, you know my feelings on this. I'm not anti-Anthony Rizzo, but it's forcing what doesn't need to be. He's played in 90 games this year. He hasn't been himself since last May. The Yankees have more athletic options. They have better contact bat options. They have non-injured options. Still don't know if the head injury from last year could be affecting him this year. I think that's constantly going to be swept under the rug and left open for speculation among viewers who see him not making characteristic defensive plays, such as last night. That 10 times out of 10 is an Anthony Rizzo gobble up 2 years ago, and now it's a coin flip. I don't think his lefty bat in the lineup is completely necessary, especially if his power has completely disappeared. That's just me. 2 broken fingers, regardless of how fast you hit your first ball in this series after coming back, 16, 17 days ago, doesn't do anything for me unless, again, it translates into something. So, I wish they would just stop doing stuff like this. It's like the Verdugo conversation we had earlier this year before it became evident that they backed themselves into the corner of him having to play in the playoffs because they didn't give Dominguez enough time to warm up to left field. Just giving the veteran the free pass, regardless of what has happened as of late, and living on previous accomplishments and abilities that no longer exist. Alex Verdugo used to be super clutch, was super clutch with the Red Sox, was really clutch with the Yankees for the first month of the season, and that completely disappeared. And the Yankees biggest problem is just banking on all of this stuff returning. It's banking on player regressions just going back to normal. It's all of this stuff that isn't really predictable, and you can only make the ruling based on what you're seeing in real time. And right now, the time is now. We're in the postseason. Lineup needs to be as ironclad as it can possibly be from this point forward. And I understand giving Rizzo the game 1 start, but based on what you saw last night with the defensive gaffe, if you're going to start him, in my opinion, he just should have been out after his last at-bat last night. And they didn't do that, and then they allowed for this to happen, and it created a strain on the bullpen, among other issues. So, Yeah, I really wish that this weren't the case. I don't want to be talking about this during an exciting playoff run, or at least a playoff run that should feel a little bit more exciting. But yeah, it's Oswaldo Cabrera and John Birdie have earned it. I know John Birdie's played in fewer games than Rizzo, but the fact that John Birdie made those plays that he did in the ALDS, despite never playing first base in a professional game before, like that earns you playing time. Being Anthony Rizzo and a postseason legend 8 years ago doesn't anymore, but the Yankees don't see it that way.
We went into that game and I was like, I'm seeing so much hatred for Rizzo on the timeline that I was like,
well, that's ridiculous. Like, yeah.
He's a good guy and he's a good Yankee, regardless of whether he deserves to play.
Absolutely.
Same with Marcus Stroman. I'd rather see Cody Poteet on the roster. It doesn't mean that Marcus Stroman didn't contribute plenty to this team, but I would say at this point in time, his July, August, September proved to me that he's not the guy to carry things in innings 5 through 8 of a blowout. The Yankees feel differently. That's fine. It's also no shade to Marcus Stroman. He's a veteran. He got deferential treatment here. Anthony Rizzo also got deferential treatment. And I was going on about, okay, if starting Anthony Rizzo is the difference between a win and a loss yesterday, then like I'll raise my hand and take the blame. But I really don't think it's going to be the difference between a win and a loss. And then it almost was in the eighth inning, because if there's anything he should be in for in that game, it's plays exactly like the one that he couldn't make.
Correct.
And he didn't make it. So nerve-wracking to say the least. And for me, I would also give him game 2 off. I don't think they will, and especially not after taking a 1-0 lead. I understand it, but I wouldn't do it. But again, that's why I'm here on a podcast stream, and the Yankees are in the dugout holding a 1-0 lead in the ALCS after winning a very tight ALDS against the Kansas City Royals team, where Bobby Witt Jr. pulled an Aaron Judge, but everybody clowned Aaron Judge and nobody clowned Bobby Witt Jr. Anyway, we will be back on Thursday, right on this feed, 2 o'clock Eastern, wrapping up game 2 and an off day, because that's the schedule that we've been dealt. And then we're going to get off air and it'll be game 3 at 5:08 in Cleveland for whatever reason. Does everyone enjoy that? That's my preferred schedule, a 5:08 Thursday game 3. Yankees keep taking it one day at a time. Turn that 0 for 7 with Risp into 3 for 9, 4 for 10. Just one game where you stand out with Risp, and then Garrett Cole, see what you can do, and then just keep erasing games. Keep being victorious. Sounds like a simple task. It's obviously quite difficult, especially at this time of year, but I recommend the New York Yankees continue to score runs, score more than you've been scoring, and also continue to pitch lights out baseball. Too much to ask? Not for me. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find you?
I am at Tommy's_takes. We are both at the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Please head on over to yanksgoyard.com. That's where all the content is. So if you don't get to hear us, you can read us. Pretty good time. We're up to date on just about everything that you need to know. Stay dialed into Yankees news and updates. Also some fun stuff, looking ahead to the offseason, sprinkling some of those things in there. Some people are talking. We're responding. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys tuning in and reading. As always, we'll see you again on Thursday live right here. Let's go Yanks.
Come on, fellas. Nice game 1 win, though. Good job, Carlos Rodón. Proved a lot of people wrong. And this month, what is this month about if not proving people wrong? Nobody wants to see us here. Let's keep being here. Nobody wants to see the Yankees alive. People want to accuse MLB of bias. Doing a Shohei Ohtani Aaron Judge ad. Oh, that shows they're biased against their biggest stars. Yeah, sure does.
That's how it works.
Hopefully we get to see the New York Yankees continue to persevere and play postseason games and win postseason games, because the Yankees are better as a villain when they're actually winning. We will see you on Thursday to talk about an additional game of this series and preview the 3rd game of the set, potentially a pivot point, hopefully a Yankee statement. Let's go Yanks.